Hey, Cliff.
Good morning.
Morning. Sorry for not being able to join the earlier call.
That's okay. We still have time.
Okay, I'll review the notes and then.
No problem.
Thank you. Cliff, I think we'll wait for another minute or two.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good move. And then we can get started.
Yeah.
It is being recorded, so we can send out the recording to everyone afterwards.
Yeah.
And I have the presentation on my screen. I can share that whenever we're ready.
Okay.
And what I can do for you and Jawad is I'll just step through it if you just tell me to advance the slide.
Yep.
That way we don't have to fumble with
Yeah.
changing screens and all that.
Which is always a fumble. Hey, John.
Morning, John.
Good morning.
Okay, one more minute. At 8:02, we'll get started.
And just to let you know, a number of folks did let me know they can't make the call this morning, but we're asking to get their hands on the recording so we can send out the recording afterwards for those that, and the slides. Want them.
Okay, so Cliff, I think we've hit 8:02.
Okay,
Maybe time to get started.
Me neither.
I'd request everyone else to go on mute. Cliff is going to present from the OCP point of view how we fit into this funding and how this collaborative effort could result in some really good outcomes for everyone and the OCP. So I would request everybody else to go on mute while Cliff talks. Thanks, Cliff.
I saw,
yeah, thank you, Anu. And I have a little bit of a presentation that will talk about the Open Compute project because we issued quite a wide invite for this call today, and I'm assuming not everyone knows the OCP well. So for those of you that do know the OCP well, I apologize for the duplication of knowledge. After that, we'll talk a little bit about ODSA, the Open Chiplet Economy project at OCP, how that maps to the funding opportunity. And then we'll talk a little bit about the services that OCP can provide as a partner for those project teams that want to put in a proposal to the NAPAM opportunity, the NOFO. Just want to double check on you can see my screen and you can see the slides properly, right? I have the right
Yes.
screen. Okay. So thank you, everyone. I'm Cliff Grossner. I think most of you know me. But for those of you that don't, I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at the Open Compute Project, and I work very, very closely with Anu and Jawad on the Open Chiplet Economy Project and many other initiatives around the Open Compute Project. And as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the project and the foundation for the newcomers on the call. I'm going to ask Jawad and Anu to talk a little bit about the Open Chiplet Economy Project, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about how we can support the project teams for NAPAM and some next steps that we're suggesting. So with that, let me kick it off. I'm hoping this presentation will take 20 to 30 minutes end to end, and we'll have some time for questions. So for those of you that don't know the OCP, it's important to understand that we're about community, and our community is hyperscale centric. Why hyperscale centric? Because it's the hyperscale data center operators that typically run across problems of operating data centers at scale, and then the community rallies around them to help solve those problems to the benefit of everyone. In solving the problems, the community in the center is always focused on the tenets of the Open Compute Project around openness, sustainability, creating systems that impact the market, that are the most efficient possible, and that operate at scale. What the community likes to generate are open innovations around proven designs for hyperscale size data centers that waterfall down to smaller designs. We provide a trusted IP model that helps what could be sometimes competitors collaborate in this environment. The community does produce specs and best practices as documentation that support rapid technology adoption. And what's also very important is the Open Compute Project Foundation wants product. So we do a lot of work around building multi-vendor ecosystems and at the same time interacting with academics and startups and research facilities driving future technologies that feed into the same funnel. If you look at the scope of the Open Compute Project, we really look at all the computational infrastructure from the hyperscale data centers out to the distributed edge data centers. And when we talk about the facility side, we talk about how we impact from silicon to systems to physical systems. So all the gamut is under the scope of OCP. We have a very diverse membership. For those of you that haven't experienced our global summits and our other events, we have people that participate from the end user side, cloud co-location providers, and the enterprise side. We have startups that work very closely with very large companies. And then we have the companies that build all the equipment that gets used in the computational infrastructure. And if you look across any of the rows here, what you will see is a very good mix of traditional companies and new companies. A very diverse membership for the OCP. I think everyone here does know by now that the OCP is a collaborative community where we have our community projects that touch all walks of the computational infrastructure, from IT infrastructure to physical infrastructure to systems management. And there are 12 top-level projects. And the Open Chiplet Economy would be under the server project, was top center there. On the left-hand side, we have our incubator functions around the Future Technology Symposium and our Future Technologies Initiative. And we also do support some new initiatives around technology in the foundation that are more product-oriented, such as EvenStar for Open RAN and our Open Systems for AI umbrella strategic initiative, and some work where, like the Open Chiplet Economy, where we've been at it for 4 or 5 years. A lot of the technologies are still building, but it's time to go to market. And so we're building markets. And we do that through our OCP marketplace, which will be instrumental in potentially helping the project teams meet some of the requirements of NOFO around building a marketplace and an economy and an ecosystem going forward. In terms of Future Technologies Initiative, that's going to be very important as well, because if I look at the 10-year horizon for the NOFO funding program, means that we need to do some fundamental research. In order to do that, we need a place to present that research and a place to bring that into OCP projects. Well, guess what? The OCP Future Technologies work is designed to do exactly that, where we have symposium, where researchers and academics and startups are encouraged to showcase some of the latest work they're doing. It could be around new techniques for cooling. It could be new techniques for AI and HPC computation. It could be around quantum, for example, stuff that might impact us in the future. And that leads to FTI, where we have some pre-IP work streams, which are predominantly populated by academics, but also bring in together the startups and the companies that want to work on that leading edge pre-IP work going forward. And as I mentioned, that's going to be very important to the incubation work for the NOFO, as that incubation work is designed to feed into OCP projects proper. So we don't want work that is going to stay languishing in the research world forever. Ultimately, it needs to transition into real product potentially. And just so you've met everybody, we have our board of directors. So you can see we have Microsoft, Google, Meta, Intel, and a few other folks, independents. We also have our advisory board, where we have people from NVIDIA and ARM and AMD and Seagate and some of the system integrators like Supermicro and some of the leading server vendors like Ampere, and then Samsung, of course, a very strong supporter of the Open Compute project. We also have the OCP Foundation staff, so you can meet us here for those of you that don't know us all. And of course, we have our steering committee. And for those of you that don't know, the Open Compute project is organized so that we have our project leads and every top level project, the 12 of them, have a representative on our steering committee, which is the committee that approves all of the contributions that become official OCP documents that are in our database. Of course, we have our 250 plus project leads. Thank you to everyone on the call that is a project lead, and our 7,000 plus participants that help in all the projects. And many of you are there on the Open Chiplet Economy project that have been powering it for many, many years. And with that, Anu and Jawad, I've done my quick introduction to OCP, and I want to pass it over to the two of you to talk a little bit about the Open Chiplet Economy and the work going on there and how we're working to build chiplet ecosystems.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Cliff. That was awesome. So a little bit about the Open Chiplet Economy subproject. So we are around since 2018, and our former name was ODSA, that stood for Open Domain Specific Accelerators. And turns out that over the course of 5 years, it evolves more in the direction of chipletization and standardization around that. So we have been focused on building collaborative workspace and collaborative environment to develop a chiplet ecosystem where everybody is welcome to come and participate. Next slide. So very recently, you can see we have created a marketplace. We've expanded the current OCP marketplace to have chiplets and associated technologies that companies can list there. Okay, so the big idea is shown in this diagram, which is that we will eventually have chiplet vendors, and we will have manufacturers, and there will be end users that can come to one location and basically find all kind of ingredients that they need, including intellectual property or the software or different type of design tools. So this was something that we did after probably spending maybe at least 1 year, if not longer, in collecting different type of information and the need that we saw in the industry. So the big idea that we had in this project from day one was, let's make everybody collaborate, because this particular paradigm shift in the industry, no one company can do it by itself. It's the whole ecosystem. And it fits very nicely with the mission of Open Compute Project Foundation, that there is a need for these technologies in the data center applications. So Next slide. Yeah, so just imagine that one day there will be a place where you could go and find a variety of chiplets. Today, we know all of this is being done within one company or within a very small consortiums of companies where they are developing different chiplets and using them for themselves. And OCP and Open Chiplet Economy's big idea is that we basically open it up or help open it up, and such that variety of different small innovative companies, large companies, they all can trade around these components. So here what we are showing is, we all know a high bandwidth memory sells as a component today. You can call it a chiplet. It's essentially a stack of chiplets. That's what it is. And today what happens is, companies are thinking about making chiplets to be the CPU or die-to-die IO and GPU, but there are a bunch of hurdles to be crossed. Okay, so our idea before the NOFO, long before the NOFO, was basically, someday we'll just get to this point. That's the data point that you're seeing, we starting the chiplet marketplace. Next slide. So here actually I'm showing a cross-section of MI300 from AMD, which is everything designed by AMD today. But just imagine that tomorrow, various companies can come together to build a variety of these components and what kind of new innovation paradigm that we can get to. So that's really the vision that we are enabling. And we believe very strongly, and we have seen the results of it in OCP and other areas, that once we help open this up, innovation gets to the next level. So our activity has always been super inclusive. In particular, the open chiplet economy, pretty much everybody in the open chiplet economy sub-project collaborates using Creative Commons license. So we generally try to avoid sharing any company-specific details and go into, so we've been very successful with that. All what we do is we define the interfaces that everybody needs to work on, and then there is a black box inside the interface where the companies just can keep their secret sauce. So from the collaboration point of view, we think we can get there in achieving this idea. So next slide, Cliff. Today, if you look at the Open Chiplet Economy project, you will see we have close to about 9 work streams. Each one of those meets once or twice a week. And each one of those has typically 5 to 10 to 15, sometimes even 20 collaborators that pretty much all the companies in the industry have at one time or the other participated or are actively participating. So on the left side, we work quite a bit on defining the interfaces for die-to-die, which is bunch of wires is the famous one, and then all the associated needs to go with that. And then in the middle, we have this whole work stream or a set of work streams around chiplet design exchange that primarily work in the area of how EDA tools can interoperate data or exchange data. And we've been developing design kits. We have released some of the standards, and some of this work has been adopted by JEDEC, and some other companies are using that to develop their EDA tools. On the right-hand side, we're focused primarily on the business and modularity opportunity to basically define what will be the lead markets and what will be the lead chiplets that people will need, and essentially basically help drive it more from the economics point of view. Cliff, one more click. So the next thing we did was we actually studied the No42 in quite detail. We listened to all the seminars, we attended it and went to the individual ones. And we do understand that the initiative is actually quite far reaching in terms of 5-year research, and has some assumptions that manufacturing technology will be able to get to the next level, which I think is a very nice way of doing it, that they decouple the design R&D and the manufacturing a little bit, such that innovations can go on both of those, and there has to be a convergence down the line. So if you look at the work that we have done in the die-to-die, is actually very easily translatable to the connector concept that they are soliciting for package to package. So some of our work streams are actually already thinking about that piece of it. If you look at the right-hand side, the whole concept of chiplet ecosystem, where there will be large body packages or potentially low power packages, packaging technology, how do we define basically standardized plug-in definition, which NAPMP refers to as sockets, but it's more like, micro sockets of some kind, or socket equivalent in the world of chiplets. That's the idea. But the big idea is to standardize these chiplets such that industry can participate in the ecosystem. So we are already working on that particular aspect. I think one of the big challenge for everybody is, we often look at what kind of manufacturing capability is out there at the moment. And that's where, we usually try to do things for what's visible next couple of years. But here, the interesting thing is to look for the technologies in the next 5 years and build for that. And in the middle is the Chiplet Design Exchange that fits pretty nicely with the EDA, especially the process and assembly design kits called that they have. And then there is a little bit that we found is interesting, where there's some intersection with power and thermal, because there was a question that got asked on the proposers day, that should power and thermal EDA be submitting under EDA or power and thermal, and the answer was submitted under power and thermal. So there is very nice correlation, especially in these 3 or 4 verticals that they have defined. And as we mentioned, that a lot of work that we do is geared towards AI, HPC, but more recently, at least some of our work streams have been focusing on the interconnects for low power side of things. So we are keeping it open at the moment, like, where this takes us, but this is the biggest. Next slide. So I'm not gonna read out all of these things for you. These slides will be available at the end, but here on the bottom, you see a bunch of contributions that are made by volunteers in terms of specifications related to those 3 areas. And quite a bit of that, actually pretty much all of it up to October, should be available for people to download and look at. And we have had a number of events in 2024. And if I go back 5 years, we've done a lot more, right? This is just barely what we can fit on here. So that gives you an idea that, we have been chugging along. And, I was just trying to count, I think easily 40 hours worth of meetings go on, or maybe even more time, lot more time that goes into developing all of it, mostly by volunteers who are deeply interested in pushing the field forward. So next one, Cliff. And I think at this stage, Cliff, these are your slides.
Yeah, thank you, Jawad. And so just in summary for Jawad, we wanted to make sure everyone knew the scope of the current work at at OCP with the open chiplet economy. And now I want to come to the NOFO opportunity and talk about how the Open Compute Project can provide support for those folks that want to form a project team and do a proposal. And so the first thing is what we found is sometimes if there are 3 or 4 or 5 companies that want to come together for the first time, and they may in fact be somewhat competitors, they don't have even an environment by which they can provide a shared tool to work on a draft of the document or be able to, orchestrate a meeting and record the results. So if any of you listening are thinking of forming a project team or have formed a project team and need some sort of infrastructure support, please let us know. Within limits, the Open Compute Project can supply some of that infrastructure to help the project teams get going. The other thing is we found that it's not always easy to build a community of support around a project. You sometimes have 3 or 4 core companies that want to do something, but need the support of a broader uh, set of organizations. And the Open Compute Project can help build that community to help work on projects once you get going. It could be done either by adding people to one of our existing work streams, or should the NOFO funding come through and the project team wants to move ahead and have some of the work done in the Open Compute Project, we can actually form a specific work stream under the Open Chiplet economy for that particular project and have the co-leads come from the proposer companies for the project. The other thing is, if you're want to do things in a collaborative way, you don't have to develop all your independent NDAs and agreements about how the intellectual property is going to be shared in the open or between the people working on the project. We already have a framework and everything's worked out at the Open Compute Project. You can simply leverage what we have. Going forward, I noticed in the NOFO proposal that they were looking for matching funds potentially on some projects. And we've also seen that it's not always easy legally for 4 or 5 companies to say, oh, we'll put in this amount of money together and create a single place where that can then be distributed from. And we already have a model where we can accept a directed fund from 4 or 5 from a number of member companies, and then the Open Compute Project, under direction of those members, would distribute the funds to wherever they need to go. So that's also possible. As work gets done on the project and it needs to be published somewhere where in the open, in a shared environment, that's where the Open Compute Project can also do that, as it becomes an official contribution at the Open Compute Project and gets published for all to use under the Open Compute Project IP policy. So that's something else to think about. The contribution management process is also something the Open Compute Project does already and could do that for project teams. Another area is, once the work is done at the Open Compute Project, we aren't a standards organization, but we do have alliances with many standards organizations or can develop new ones. And we would then be able to have the work feed into a global standards organization to impact the market on a broader scale. The other thing that's also, I think, very important is, okay, so we do all the work, all the innovations are done. Does it ever impact any product? And with the Open Compute Project, we have our supply chain mechanisms where our vendor members will pick up the innovations and we'll build a multi-vendor supply chain based around what's being done. And that would also go into our OCP marketplace, where we accelerate the growth of an emerging market. We get over 15,000 visits to our marketplace a month. So anything that's there gets visibility. And the last thing I wanted to point out was the Open Compute Project this year has launched a learning management platform for education. And as I noticed, part of the NOFO proposals are looking for educational mechanisms, and we have the mechanism to house courses that are targeted for engineers and market development, and make them available from the OCP. And these could be courses that are for free, and they could also be some that have certifications with a test at the end, and even some that are paid for courses. So it would be very easy for the OCP to support a project team that wanted to go all the way to creating educational hubs for within one of the project scopes. Okay, so that's a lot of ways that the Open Compute Project can help. And I just want to summarize that for those project teams that are drafting a proposal, what we've done in the past and are open to doing for proposals that we can take a look at and fit within our mission is to provide a letter of support about what the Open Compute Project can do for that project team. So it's something you would, and so this comes to the next steps. Well, we don't know where people are in the step of forming proposal teams. So please feel free to connect with each other on the call. If anyone needs an introduction, we're happy to do that to the people that are on the call, as not everybody might know each other. Feel free to also reach out to some of the companies that are already in the OCP ecosystem and bring them into project teams. Let the OCP know if you're forming a project team and you're going to want support in some way. What we would ask is we would not be able to support something that comes in at the 11th hour. Things are due December 20th, so within the next week or two, if there is a project team that would like some support from the Open Compute Project, we would like to hear about it sooner rather than later. We can let us know if support's needed for setting up an environment to actually do the proposal, something we can try to do on a limited basis. On top of that, there is the draft concept paper that's due December 20th, as I mentioned. We would be available, again, in a limited number of teams to review the paper, if that made sense, from an open perspective, and the letter of support that I mentioned. And lastly, Jawad talked a lot about what we can do in the open chiplet economy, and you can start to participate even today. And here's some links for you about how you can get started within the open chiplet economy if you're not already involved in the discussion. So I did say 20 to 30 minutes, and we're at about 30 minutes into the call. I'm going to stop here and open the floor to see who would like to ask a question. We are open to questions. If you would like to ask a question, just come off mute, and we'll do our best to answer on the call.
Hi, Sunil Dixit with Quick Logic Corporation. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sunil.
Okay. Question I have is, do you already have some teams that have chosen one of the technology areas for the NOFO, or is that something that you are looking to do in the near future?
That's a great question. So I've had one team reach out to me so far, and they haven't totally chosen which area. What I will tell you is, from the Open Compute Project perspective, we'd like to have coverage across the areas, but if there are multiple teams in the same area, that's not a problem for us. We're open to everyone, and we're not about picking and choosing at this stage.
So I think I would probably like to talk to Jawad maybe a little bit later on. Something that we're interested in doing is on the chiplet ecosystem, whether high performance or low power, whichever directions they want to go. So Jawad, if you have any comments or you can have any directions on how to get together with you.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Please send me an email with your idea if you want to say lead or follow and which area you're thinking about. So Anu and I can then create a matrix and we can just connect people with each other. We'll be happy to start new projects and connect you with our work streams as well.
Okay. Do you have an email address?
I'll just type that. But it's Jawad at paloaltoelectron.com.
Okay.
that in the, yeah.
Yeah, we're probably not planning to lead, but probably sub. Hello? Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's good. And Jawad's email is in the chat. Also, for any of you that want to reach out to the project leads, they also have OCP email addresses, and they're on the OCP website under the project, but it looks like both the leads have given you their email directly.
Lip, hi, this is Majid. Is there a template for this concept paper that maybe helps everyone to sort of target, fields that needs to be filled?
That's a good question. I have not, maybe Jawad and I know if there's a particular template. There is quite a large page, the explanation of what is being looked for.
Yeah.
And that's available from the CHIPS Act website, of course.
So, Majid, in probably next week call, one of the things that we are trying to do is, we are trying to ask government to send a rep here in this same meeting to give us an overview, and would be delighted if that were to be Bapi. And if that gets accepted, that's one thing. The other thing we want to talk about is exactly what you pointed out, which is like a template. Now, it turns out in one of the 30-minute seminars that they posted online, there was some prescription on what to include, and they do have some large set of, bounding boxes that they say, hey, write it this way or that way, right? So I think writing is probably the easier part. I think the more useful is understanding, how we can help and what is needed and what is being asked. So we want to cover both of these topics next Friday if we can get the people into this call. And you are welcome to come and share if you feel like.
Thanks, Jawad.
Jawad, this is Elko. So we've actually been through this process on previous NOFOs. There's very clear guidelines on the NIST site on what needs to be included. The concept plans are a little bit more open format, but once you go to the final applications, it gets very specific. So anyone interested, I would just encourage you to go to the NIST site, the NAPMP site. There's a lot of information there.
Yeah, and I think John just put a link in the chat for the proposal. Thank you. Yeah.
A quick question from me. So about the participation, some of the companies that may be thinking about participating in this NOFO do not are members of OCP, but do not necessarily participate in OCE, in this forum, just because of the structure of their alignment with OCP. I was wondering how do we get to each of those companies? Would they know? How do we let them know that, hey, this is what we are doing, we need help? And how do we collaborate, right, to get the or maybe paper done with those companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. If there are specific companies that you would like us to reach out to, we can do that. We can also take a look at some of the other mailing lists within the Open Compute Project, for example, Server Project, or the Cooling Environments Project has a mailing list, and we can send a recording of this to that mailing list as well.
Okay.
This is Bill Chen. Can we have a followed up discussion, perhaps at the weekly meeting that Anu and Jawad has? I think we have started thinking about it, but I think there may be time for follow up discussion. Would that be a good medium for this follow up discussions?
Absolutely, Bill. Next 5 or 6 of these meetings at the same time slot, which is Pacific 8 a.m. Anu and I are planning to kind of like dedicate this time slot to provide support to the concept papers being written under this umbrella. So we want to address all the common questions. So I think you will see that we will have a follow-up next Friday. If you think we should insert more meetings, we can definitely think about that.
Yes, I was thinking about to bring over capabilities for test and for capabilities for qualification, which I think would be a good addition to that project.
So, Bill, we do have a new test work stream. I don't know if Rajesh is on the call. So if you want a meeting sooner than that, sooner than next Friday, there may be a meeting for the test work stream. And that may be a good place to get the discussion started.
Yeah, you and I can have a call or email exchange after this so that we could move forward.
Hey, Cliff,
Thank
this
you.
is Cash. Could I just make a request? I think there was somebody on the chat also said, is there a possibility to have like a shared document where anyone that's looking at doing something or suggesting can share kind of what they're planning or wanting, and what, particularly for a teaming, because it's going to be really difficult to do one-on-one emails, right? So just saying, company XYZ, this is our contact, we're interested in doing this. That might be very helpful. That's sort of set up by OCP, so people can just view that and check it or ask questions, and then we could follow up on these meetings. So just something like that would be helpful.
Yeah,
I second that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying I second that. I think we need to have some offline resources where we can do some matchmaking.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest, thank you, John. I can set up a Google Sheet this afternoon, and when we send out the recording for this call, send out also that link, and anyone can enter in a bit of details about what they have to offer and what they're looking for, and then people can take a look at that and do some offline matchmaking.
Jawad, I'm on call. So what was the question regarding test?
So Bill had a question. Do you have your regular meetings for the test work stream coming up before next Friday?
No, not yet. I mean, we have one initial thinking, but if I get an email from trusted, I can send.
Yeah, so a little bit of matchmaking here. Bill is interested in the test and reliability. So
Okay. You can I can put my email on the chat there.
We can connect the two of you together. And
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah, Cliff, I really like your idea about that spreadsheet. Maybe it would be super if basically there's a list of companies and the different sections of the novel, and at least at the first cut we can kind of express interest in a specific section, right? Say company A wants to do objective 1, objective 5, and so on, right? And see what works.
Okay, sounds good.
Is this something that we can all update as well, or is it going to be managed where, I think it'd be better if people could just write their own stuff in there as well, right?
Absolutely. I'll make it wide open. Anyone with the link can edit it, and we'll go from there.
Okay. And I just want to add a plug to
spreadsheet be available? Sorry, when will that spreadsheet be available?
I'll try to get it out this afternoon.
Thank you.
Hey, Cliff, I just wanted to say that Wednesdays we have a PHI meeting, and obviously NOFO has a even though they're not asking for a specific PHI, this is very relevant. So I think we will be discussing that. So we'll put information on that spreadsheet as well as saying, hey, this as a work group, this is kind of what we're working on. It'd be just nice to have it in one area that people can quickly see rather than spread out all over the place. So just a comment. So.
Yeah, Cash, actually, that's a good idea because we did discuss it last Wednesday at Elad's meeting. So
yeah, and we can add a link to it as well, so people can just get the information quickly.
Yeah, good point.
Okay.
Yeah, so along the same lines, if we have our work stream leads here, and if there's any activity going on in those, please say a word about those. Maybe there's something in CDX or BOW, right?
Yeah, since you mentioned CDX first, I'll go first. But definitely on the CDX side, definitely all the design kit activity. We are definitely interested in that. Both, right? We are working to define what the file format would for that be. Definitely would need to collaborate with people who actually need that, right? To see what automation can be done around that. Any translations that we need to do and so on. So definitely interested in the PADK piece. I know it was mentioned just PADK, but it's kind of a big complicated piece with EDA and whole flow chart that was shared by the government. So we can work on that. We can collaborate on that, and CDX kind of already does some of this work.
Thanks, David. Cash, would you like to talk about the BowFlexi?
Yeah, I could talk about the BowFlexi. So this is more of a more flexible than Bow as a next generation, and it'll be more usable for IoT and low power applications, as well as extending up to 3D, very simple PHYs, which is sort of essentially along the lines that the market is moving, right? So as you know, Intel is already shipping 10 micron pitch devices, and UCI 3D, for example, is a standard that's come out of that. I think Bow will be doing something similar. So for people who are interested in how to connect these chiplets together, I think that'll be a focus within our group. Kevin is heading up the memory part of that as well. I'm looking at the IoT, more flexible PHY, and Elad from Blue Cheetah is the person overseeing this group. And so I think this will be an area of interest to us. And that's Wednesdays at 9. So we'll have links to that and what work we're doing. I think in this spreadsheet we'll add that so that I know this will be an item of interest to people. How do I connect these chiplets together with 10 micron pitch? We'll have some comments on that. We're obviously interested in who can provide a substrate that can handle that, right? So I think over time, as we put this information together, this will be very helpful. So I think that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay, and I think given the fact that we need a concept paper per project by December 20th, realistically, I think we've got about 1, maybe 2 weeks to form the project teams, and then people need to get going on the actual content, unless I miss my guess. George, do you have your hand up by any chance? I think you might, right?
Yeah, I do, because so thanks. I just wanted to spend maybe half a minute for the HPC and AI chiplet workstream, since we're describing workstreams. And where we are right now is we're trying to understand how to identify important applications in HPCs and data centers, how to get important kernels out of them, and then how to make the next step into putting them down to the chiplets, figuring out what specs those chiplets need to meet, how they're going to connect with the outside world, how big, basically try to figure out what kind of specifications we can recommend to the community, as well as show the flow from application all the way down to hardware, so we can encourage this open development of chiplets. So I think this all sounds very relevant. Me and Tricia will add that stuff to the spreadsheet once it's available.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Rajesh, you have any comments on the test, where we stand with that one? I guess we can move on to the next.
Marek is here. Marek, would you like to? I think I saw Marek on the call.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm here. Sorry, I was joining a little late.
Could you give a quick update on what the goals of the business work
Yes,
stream?
absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'm leading the business work stream for the open Chiplet economy. We've been focusing mainly on issues of trying to basically work out where chiplet solutions make sense and trying to show all the all the connected problems between technology and making a business case. And the things that we've done to help educate people is write a white paper recently. We've been hosting the last 2 years business workshops where we invite companies to talk about the challenges that they see and also try to come up with solutions, possibly something that could be addressed in a forum like OCP. And more recently, we're working on a series of short tutorial videos that go into these individual topics such as packaging or architecture or test to make it easier for people to understand really where the caveats with chiplet design or where those caveats are.
Thank you, Marek.
Sure.
Jawad, sorry, I was on a mute, talking on a mute. I can go.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
please go ahead, Rajesh.
Yeah, sorry. So this is Rajesh. Myself and Mike Bartley from TESOL. We are both co-leading.
I think you went on mute again.
You went back on mute. Rajesh, you went back on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now we can. Yeah.
Sorry. So we have started this test work stream. Actually, we are trying to start it new. So there'll be a kickoff meeting by Wednesday just to brainstorm and see what time slot works. But at least we have some few interested folks. So do join us, and we did have submitted the OCP white paper on the die-to-die test, and we actually presented it in OCP Global Summit. So everybody is welcome. Actually, we are looking for participants from not just from ATE and design, but also various sectors like automotive. We do have the participants from semiconductor EDM people like Intel and the CAD company like Synopsys. So this will send out once the meeting is finalized, we'll send out the note. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Any other questions that we can help answer? Well, looks like Cliff, we did a good job. Nobody has any questions.
Well, that's good. So just in summary from myself, I just want to reiterate that the Open Compute Project is here to help out project teams that would like that support from us. So if you let us know, we'll do our best to help everyone. We'll be on a first come, first served basis as we do have limited resources. So please understand that.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Cliff. Thanks, Jawad, for the great summary of the work we do and the collaborations we can support. Cliff, if Cliff says he's going to have that Google spreadsheet ready, he is. So I'm sure sometime by the end of today, we'll have something and use that to collaborate and put in thoughts and for communication and obtaining email addresses. So.
Anu, would there be a link or will you email it out blanket to everyone?
Yeah, I'm going to work with Anu and Jawad to get the link for today's recording, and we'll send an email out to everyone that was invited to this call with the link for the recording, the presentation, and the link to the Google Sheet where people can then enter their interests in participating in a project team.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, I think then we can be done for the day. Well, not for the day, but for the hour maybe.
Yeah. And,
Okay, thank you, everyone.
do
Bye.
watch out for our follow-up agenda items that will circulate.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for organizing.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.